Matt Gilmour sitting in for Aaron Rand today. Jumped the gun a little bit on that one. Rudy Husny is here to join us to talk a little bit about the political news of the day. Former advisor in the Harper government and political analyst. The segment brought to you by Guaranteed Industries. For excellent home comfort systems, call Guaranteed Industries and ask about their Can-Air climate control system. 514-342-3400. Serving Montrealers since 1957. How are you, Rudy?
Very good. Hello, Matt.
Thank you for doing this. I guess, there's a lot been going on in Ottawa, despite the fact that we are heading into the summer months. And you flagged a vote that maybe got missed by some people because of everything that's been going on in Saskatchewan around the First Minister's meeting. But the throne speech, the Carney government has already lost a vote in Parliament.
Yes, yesterday there was some votes exactly on the throne speech, but the opposition were able to actually make an amendment to ask for a fiscal update or a budget before the end of the session. As you know, the Carney government refused to do and to provide any economic update in terms of what are the revenues, what are the costs, and where's the deficit, where are we at with the deficit, and they decided to postpone it to autumn. But yesterday there were a vote, and the Liberal government realized that they don't have a majority, that it's actually a minority government, and they lost by 2 votes. So it's very interesting. It's kind of a little reminder that the Liberals cannot just do whatever they want. Yes, that doesn't mean that, they're going to actually table one, but it's just a reminder that in Parliament, and especially when there's going to be votes, they need to have the support of at least one party. So either the Conservative, the Bloc Québécois, or the NDP to being able to do whatever legislations that they want to table. So it was interesting. There's going to be another vote tomorrow on the throne speech. You expect that, yes, it will pass, and no, we're not going to go into an election again. But it was just a quick reminder yesterday that they have to be careful and they need to negotiate with at least one party. Otherwise, they can face trouble in the future.
So this vote, does it mean that they will have to table a fall economic update or a budget, or is this just sort of a motion and it doesn't have any binding sort of authority?
It's not binding, and Mark Carney was asked about it. He said that he noted the vote, but no, they're not going to table one, a fiscal update. But it was more a symbol in terms of the government, the opposition, or sometimes not willing to play ball with the government.
All right, so let's turn to Saskatchewan, where they had that First Minister's meeting yesterday. A lot of jubilant premiers heading back to their provinces today. What were your takeaways from what went on there?
But it's very interesting. First of all, it was the first official meeting of Prime Minister Carney as a sitting Prime Minister, and it was interesting because everybody is asking for money, and he's open to it. So it was kind of a Santa Claus. Even Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, was saying, oh, it's like Christmas, and Mark Carney is Santa Claus, and we just have our wish list, and we want this or this project. But for the moment, we still don't know what's going to happen. But it was, I believe, a very good meeting, a first very good meeting. Even the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, who has been very tough in terms of on the Liberals, saying that the Liberals are not defending Alberta, said that she really witnessed a change of tone. And actually, she was very happy that one minister was not there. And obviously, she was talking about Stephen Guilbeault, the former environmental minister, who now is not environmental minister anymore. So it was a very first good meeting. The goal of the meeting is to see what kind of big national project can be put forward by provinces to make sure that they get speeded and that they can get approved as quickly as possible. Obviously, we're talking about a pipeline, but also perhaps some infrastructure, airports, ports, rail, even nuclear. Ontario was talking about nuclear. Quebec was talking about hydro. As you know, Quebec recently signed a deal with Newfoundland. So Quebec government was asking possibly for the federal government to fund part of that project. So for the moment, we still don't know which project is going to go forward, how much money is the federal government willing to share the cost, but it was a first good meeting. And yes, Mr. Carney did say that he's open to a pipeline and that Canada is an energy superpower. So I believe it was a good first meeting, but everything is in the details now.
I want to come back to this energy superpower idea in just a second, but first want to ask you about just sort of how it works in terms of the nuts and bolts of actually getting these infrastructure projects funded and done, because there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of people who are happy about the projects that they're pitching, et cetera. But, we have a limited amount of money as a government that we can throw at these projects. It's not like we can authorize $100 billion worth of infrastructure projects next year. So what needs to happen from here where everybody's excited and there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the day that, there's actual operational projects like this?
Yes, the problem is obviously money and how much funding is going to be available from the federal government for those kinds of projects. But the most important thing is not only money, it's assessment, because it takes too long for those projects to get assessed, because provinces do their own, for example, environmental assessment, and after the federal government also does its own. And the problem is that sometimes it takes 10 years, for example, for a mine to get approved or for some infrastructure project to get approved because of all the different assessment that is happening. So Mr. Carney was very clear during the election campaign that he wants to streamline. He wants to have a deadline, a timeline when it comes to those big projects, for example, to get it approved in less than 2 years. It's very ambitious, but at the same time, some people are saying that we cannot expect to have foreign investment, for example, in Canada, or to attract foreign investment in Canada if we continue to have all those regulatory hurdles, and that it takes, for example, 10 years for a mine to get approved or for a railroad to get approved, for example.
So Mark Carney did talk about this idea of Canada as an energy superpower. What do you think he means by that? What would it take for Canada to be an energy superpower?
Look, the reality of our geography is, yes, we are rich when it comes to oil and gas, but oil and gas is in Alberta, and they have difficulties exporting it outside of the U.S. The problem right now, especially with what's happening with the U.S., is to find other markets, and to do so, it's either to ship it through the Pacific or through the Atlantic. As you know, we don't have a pipeline that goes from Alberta to the east, so there was a lot of talk about it. No, for the moment, Quebec is still undecided when it comes to a pipeline coming through Quebec. But one interesting part from yesterday's meeting is Manitoba is now open to say, look, we have access to Churchill, which gives you access to Hudson Bay, and perhaps we can build a pipeline from Alberta through Manitoba to Churchill, and that will go to the Atlantic. So that's maybe something. If Quebec doesn't want to play ball, maybe there's going to be an option for another pipeline that goes from Alberta, but through Manitoba and not through Quebec, for example.
Yeah, you also earlier sort of mentioned or touched on a few other ideas for major projects, infrastructure projects, including ports, mines, some nuclear energy. But there was another one that sort of jumped out at me, critical minerals and potentially an Arctic corridor. So what do we know about that idea?
Yes, also that's also something that that the government is now looking, because look, when it comes to critical mineral, or just to talk when we talk about, oh yes, we want, for example, green energy, or we want batteries, we need critical minerals, and that's why now we are looking. The federal government is looking at having that corridor, and that corridor can also be for critical minerals, but for example for hydro also, because that's something that, for example, Quebec is for it. So yes, there's going to be discussion on how we can use, for example, the Arctic, maybe also having a port, a deep water port. I'm from the Harper government. It was already an idea back in 2010 and 2015. Unfortunately, it didn't go forward. So maybe now we have momentum to build those kind of infrastructure in the north and in the Arctic.
Listen, Rudy, it's early days in the Carney government, but it does seem like things are changing somewhat compared to his predecessor and the other Liberal governments that preceded him.
Yes, it was actually the word of Doug Ford, who said it was the best premier's meeting in 10 years. The reality is that he's only been premier for 7 years, but it was meant to say that there's a change of tone from the Trudeau years, and that there's maybe some momentum now, or at least willing to have a close relationship when it comes to energy with all provinces and territories.
Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.